Welcome, everybody. Self-care is vital to healthy living on many levels. But unfortunately, many of us today have been conditioned to believe that putting ourselves first is selfish. So, in today's video, I'm sharing 3 tips for developing a positive mindset for our self-care. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Jenn J. I am a women's hormone health coach and family nutritionist. My practice is built on empowering women who are living with uncomfortable and debilitating hormonal symptoms. Things like painful periods, PMS, weight issues, energy issues, mood swings. I help them reclaim their lives, put those period problems to rest. And because I'm a mom, I know how hard it can be to get the family on board. So I have tools and resources to help the whole family eat healthier. Now, self care is vital to healthy living, right? Just on so many levels. It helps us to become that optimum versions of ourselves. Our actions and our attitudes are core components of self care, and having that right mental outlook is key to regulating our wellness. So, developing a positive mindset for self care requires commitment and work. It's not a one stop shop and done or an overnight success. It's this series of micro commitments to our lifestyle and to ourselves. And this is what I teach in my practice with my clients. And, you know, when we make these micro commitments, I'm telling you, the rewards are so well worth the effort. So, one of the first things we have to do is realize that self care is a right and a responsibility. So, most of us today, and especially us moms, have been conditioned to believe that putting ourselves first is selfish. Perhaps you've heard the term of buyer's remorse, right? And this happens when someone experiences guilt after making a purchase for themselves. And it's a sad reality that many of us moms have buyer's remorse when it comes to investing in our own self care. I remember for myself as a young mom, I put myself last all of the time. It was normal for me. And what I ended up doing was causing a lot of anxiety for myself. Caused I was projecting my trauma responses and my stress on my daughter. I was projecting my insecurities onto my husband, and I was really devaluing my self worth because of it. And what I learned, and actually sort of what I teach in my hormone health reset program, is that the right mindset really accepts that self care is a right and it's not a privilege. It's something you're entitled to. So you are worthy of the time and the effort that it takes to create fulfillment within yourself. You have the right to be mentally and physically well. No one is entitled to diminish your need for self care. So, personal wellness really truly is a responsibility. And a good mindset means accepting responsibility for the path of your life. So, it's all too common today for people to lay blame when it comes to our own challenges, right? But taking responsibility really empowers you. And there's great comfort that comes from knowing you are in control. And I know this because I'm a control freak. Now, how do we do this, right? Well, one of the things we want to do is we want to create a new mental narrative. So the things that we tell ourselves matter, right? We spend our whole lives telling ourselves a mental story. And in fact, we probably speak to ourselves many more times over than we do anybody else in our lives. So the story frames how we perceive the world and our reactions to life's twists and turns, which are inevitable, right? So our thoughts become our words and our words become our actions. So those produce our results, right? So if we want to change the results, it all starts with the actions and the stories that we tell ourselves inside our brain. So just close your eyes for a second and listen to the story that your mind is telling you. Is it filled with empowering phrases and images, or is it polluted by a negative outlook? Is it full of words like I can't, or I wish, or if only, or but, or I don't? Then you're really looking at, this negative outlook in your story, that's preventing you from moving forward, or at least from giving yourself those little bits of things that you need to be fulfilled. So instead, why don't we learn to rewrite that mental script? It's often on autoplay. A lot of us don't even recognize that we're doing it. So a great way to do this can be to simply slow that endless procession of thoughts and noise. Meditation is a really great way to do that. It quiets the mind. It can help us refocus on positive thoughts. Other really great options would be things like journaling, using I am statements, visualization as well, and then even vision boards can be really helpful. And all of this, of course, takes effort. It doesn't happen overnight. But in time, the flow and the substance of your own mental narrative can change for the better, right? So find, one or two of those systems that work for you and start doing them. The next thing you're going to want to do here, and this one's really hard for most of us, I get it, is to stop consuming mental junk food. We live in the era of social media. I'm sure all of you have one of these close by if you're not literally watching me on your device, right? You're probably even watching me on one of your social media platforms that you enjoy. So these platforms can be useful for communicating, of course, with distant friends and family, finding a story to lift your spirits, hopefully including the ones that I share with you here on my channels, right? But unfortunately, they can also be really toxic. And there's so much junk food for the brain on social media. So, our brain is a body organ that requires sustenance and nutrition, just like our heart and our lungs. It needs to be fed the good stuff that actually keeps it stimulated, right? So, that hour that you spend perusing a news field that's or a news feed that's just filled with like controversy, self-pitying posts, or even things like just mind-numbing videos would be better spent doing something like yoga or reading a book on the subject of wellness or self-development, going for a walk, getting fresh air, that sort of thing, right? So allowing yourself to detach from social media is important, but also observing the results of that. How are you feeling when you do that? Does it lighten how you're feeling? Purging your social media by unfollowing the people and the accounts that don't serve you is another great way when you come back to social media to ensure that it remains a positive place for you, right? So, take that deep breath. It's very hard. Of course, we do get dopamine hits when we are watching and scrolling our news feeds and our channels, because it does deliver a little bit of that feel good, that addictive behavior. And that's what it's built for, right? Of course, the systems want you to stay on there as long as possible consuming content. So make sure that, the content that you're consuming is actually fueling your brain with that positivity and, with things that actually fill you up, right? So our mind can be unruly at times. It really must be disciplined. It must also be exercised, just like the body. And in the beginning, the work will be hard, right? Like it's not something that happens overnight. It's obviously very addictive, so it's difficult for us to put it down or to take time away from it, but we see it more and more every day. More and more people taking social media detoxes, as they call it. And this is really a really great time for you to evaluate what social media is doing for your mindset and how good you feel about yourself, right? So each passing day, you'll find that your mindset does, improve by working on that mindset of supporting your self-care, right? Of supporting that time for yourself. So whenever some of that guilt or that shame kicks in, the next time that you're enjoying yourself, or when the anxiety just gets way too much for you to handle, remember that self-care for you is a right. It's not a privilege. It's something that you can start today and that takes very little time. In fact, I'll just link a couple of videos here for you. Somewhere in the box here, you'll see a link that you can go to check out some of the other videos that I've talked about, or shared on, tips for incorporating self-care into your daily routine, how stress and lack of self-care actually influence your menstrual cycle, the types of symptoms you experience, and all of that. And then, start rewriting that internal dialogue that allows you to feel like you aren't enough, because you are enough. Fuel your mind with that uplifting content and get out there and start taking care of yourself. So, if you found this video to be helpful and uplifting for you, please be sure to like and share it. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for sticking around and watching with me. And remember to keep living healthy one bite at a time. Bye, everybody.